he's frozen again. Something's wrong with my internet. I don't know what to do. I think I should go off Wi-Fi.
CYJ today, other stakeholders contributed more than $460,000 to CYJ Midwest in a year's time. And that includes some special fundraising that took place as part of our 50th anniversary campaign, in addition to the normal annual campaign and scholarship fundraising, but it wasn't normal because it was increased in this past year. It includes tuition dollars that were generously donated back by many, many parents, even though we had to cancel our summer programming in Wapaka last year, and about $100,000 in emergency grants from foundations and other funders who really stepped up to support overnight Jewish camping in CYJ Midwest during this pandemic. So just for some perspective, that's more than 3 times the amount we typically raise in a normal year. And that special show of support really got us through those challenging times. And I want you to note that I'm using the word special, not unique, because it's not totally unreplicable. This year, because we want to build on the positivity and the real show of strength of the past year, the CYJ Development Committee and the board made the ambitious decision to significantly raise the goal amount for what we want to bring in a typical year. This year's goal is $230,000, which is not as much as what we raised last year because we can't necessarily count on all the emergency grants, and we're not canceling camp this summer, so we're not going to look for tuition dollars to be donated. But it's about 50% more than the amount that we had been typically raising before this pandemic. And we're confident that we can build on that success and raise more money. And we're already seeing a validation of that confidence in the results. We're more than halfway, not even halfway through the year, and we're well ahead of pace. And we know that we're going to hit that goal. And again, it's because of the generosity of the people on this call and others like you. So we're really, really grateful to you and just really proud and gratified to be able to have this thank you event today. And I just want to make one final note that some additional support we're getting is yet another matching grant donation from the Harold Grinspoon Foundation, so that between now and the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30th, every single contribution that gets made is being matched $1 for every $2. So if you haven't yet made your gift or renewed it for 2021, just know that the Grinspoon Foundation will be matching it 1 to 2, which is a really great opportunity for our donor community. So with that, I just wanted to again say thank you and welcome you. And I want to turn it over to Robin Anderson, our magnificent director, who has some great updates for us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for attending today to this donor appreciation event. My name is Robin Anderson. I'm the CYJ director. Over this past Shabbat, my family and I were discussing how 1 year ago, my husband and I were celebrating our daughter's birthday with her kindergarten class. And exactly 1 week later, our kids packed up their backpacks and we started quarantining. And over this past year, we have all discussed the challenges and the sadness and the heartbreak of the past year. But today I am excited to share a CYJ update that is truly positive and exciting. When the world went into quarantine last March, we transitioned seamlessly to our CYJ at Home program. Over the course of last spring, we offered countless virtual programs open to everyone. They included comedians and magicians, athletic workouts, cooking classes, arts programming, Shabbat story times, concert series, and more. We even hosted bunk meetups for all of our 2020 campers and staff. And then as we moved into the summer, we ran 2 successful virtual Explorer Camp programs. Campers were able to experience up to 7 weeks of programming that were run by staff from all over the United States and Israel. The full-time staff and our board were able to safely run a CYJ get-together for our campers, where families could stop by in multiple locations to receive a special t-shirt and a cool treat. As we continued over this year, it was really exciting to see our alumni reconnect. Through our alumni committee, we offered a Decades Week where each decade had the opportunity to speak and reminisce. We heard countless memories, and the most frequent comment that I heard was, "I can't believe we haven't seen each other in over 20 years." Between our CYJ Then and Now program with Barry Feinstone and our Judeans in the Military program, along with this Decades Week, we have re-engaged with hundreds of our alumni again who are feeling that CYJ magic. And as we move into the 2021 season, I am so proud to say on this call that we are over 100% to our budget enrollment goal. More and more children want to experience the CYJ magic. Campers are attending from all over the Midwest, along with California, Texas, and Washington, DC. All of our bunks are freshly painted and will have air handlers installed for the 2021 summer for additional air ventilation and better temperature control. We have built a new Teal camping site on our grounds for our campers to continue to experience this program within our COVID protocols. We have expanded our archery range to include up to 12 targets. We've added a new hammock village. We even purchased an extra large wedding tent to eat together outside. Our staff is working on programming plans to keep everyone safe and still feel that family atmosphere. As CYJ's maintenance director said to me a few weeks ago, it's been too long since we heard laughter and excitement here in Wapaka, and I can't wait to welcome them back. In just 3 months, we will be welcoming our staff on site in Wapaka, and 10 days later, our first session campers. And everything I just mentioned is because of your support. I love CYJ Midwest, and I know you do too. Thank you for continuing to allow CYJ Midwest to be a safe, inclusive environment for Jewish children and staff to make choices about their Judaism and Israel. And now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Julie Ohana, who is going to introduce our special guest for today, who I'm very excited about because, as most of you know, I do not cook at all. So I'm really looking forward to learning some tips.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Ohana. Some of you may remember me as Julie Ruskin. I'm a longtime, lifelong Judean. I am a current CYJ parent, what I'm super proud of, and I'm also a CYJ board member. And I am so excited today that we're all here together because we have two of my favorite things happening at the same time, celebrating our love for CYJ and celebrating our love of delicious, amazing Israeli food, brought to you by the most amazing cookbook author, Adeena Sussman, author of Sababa. You can see on my bookshelf right there. Adeena, welcome.
Hey, it's so nice to be here. Thank you.
We are so thrilled to have you with us. And I have a feeling that many people in this audience already have your amazing cookbook and know how incredible it is, but we're super excited for you to be showing us two of the incredible recipes in the book.
I'm delighted to be here. I grew up in Palo Alto. I had a lot of friends in Young Judaea and people who did year course, and you know, friends of my husband were Judeans, and so it feels like coming home, and it's great to connect with all of you since we can't see each other in person right now, and we're waiting for you all to come back to visit us in Israel. So so nice to be here.
We're going to make you an honorary Judean for this.
I love that. Thank you so much.
so let's get started. What do you have for us? What are you going to be showing us today?
So since it's brunch time and Sunday in the United States, I thought that I would share one of the more popular brunchy dishes from the book. As we all think of shakshuka as kind of the traditional, you know, iconic Israeli brunch dish. And I sort of did something adjacent in addition to the two shakshuka recipes in my book called pita quiles. I'm just gonna, if anyone's cooking along with me, I just want to suggest that you preheat your oven to 425, as I have done. And as I slice some pitas for my pita quiles, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about, I'm gonna cut these into 1-inch strips without splitting the pitas in half, since I want them to be sort of like nice croutons, kind of like what you get at the falafel store when they cut off the top of the falafel and fry those things and you get the chips on the bar. So that's kind of was the inspiration for this dish. When I decided to write sababa, I'm going to throw these onto my sheet pan as I talk to you. So when I decided to write sababa, I was trying to figure out what I could add to the conversation about Israeli cooking. As a lot of you know, Israeli cooking went from a trend to a movement to, I think, a permanent part of the American cooking canon. There are dishes and ingredients like za'atar, tahina, preserved lemons, and dishes like shakshuka, falafel that, people are making. Trader Joe's is selling schug, the fiery green hot Yemenite hot sauce, refrigerated. So who would have thought 5 years ago? Too. Yes, now they have za'atar, although they did one of those cute like Palestinian mothers taste kind of a thing, and they tasted the za'atar and rejected it out of hand, just pointing it out. But I'm drizzling some olive oil on my pita strips here, and then I am going to take za'atar that I bought in the shuk, and I'm going to sprinkle it onto my pita chips. I'm making sort of like a seasoned pita chip. You could add cayenne to this, or cumin, or nothing. If you don't like seasoning, you could just kind of keep them nice and plain. But what I wanted to do was show people what it was like for an American immigrant living in Israel, cooking in the shuk and using Israeli cuisine as sort of her ulpan, her induction into Israeli culture. I speak Hebrew, and I had spent a lot of time in Israel and had been asked to write an Israeli cookbook in the past, but I never felt that, unless I was living in Israel, that I didn't really have the credibility to write the book and to sort of, really dig deep into the culture and the cooking here. And once I met my now husband, Jay, about 6.5 years ago, and got married 3.5 years ago, and moved to Tel Aviv, I realized that I finally could share with people something new and different. Most of the Israeli cookbooks that have been written in recent years have been written actually by Israeli chefs living in the United States and from a restaurant cooking background. And I'm although I have professional training, I'm a home cook. My recipes are dedicated to people like you. And I wanted to show people how you could use all of the incredible ingredients and staples of the Israeli kitchen in a multitude of ways, and see them sort of like I do, like a culinary outsider in a culture. So, using tahina in a million different ways, using pita in pita quiles instead of chilaquiles, the traditional Mexican dish, which I grew up in California loving and eating for breakfast. So that was kind of how I approached sababa. And I'm just going to pop these pita chips into the oven. They're going to toast for about 6 or 7 minutes at 425, depending on how crispy you like them. I like mine really crunchy, so I might let them go just a little bit longer. Did you have a question, Julie, or a comment?
So I just wanted to say that I think your point of view totally comes across so amazing, because I think anybody who has looked at the book, read the book, follows you online, knows that what you write about is really the life that you live. And I think that's what makes it so amazing, is that we know that you're in the shuk all the time, you live near the shuk. It really does feel like it's a part of your life.
Yeah. And, I realized that there really hadn't been a lot of stories told from that perspective in a cookbook form, and, taking that and combining it with cooking and recipes. And I thought that it might be, I wanted to do something valuable. A cookbook that's just a vanity project is wonderful, but I just didn't feel like it was going to have any staying power. So, I took all my experience as a professional recipe developer and cookbook co-writer behind the scenes, and, all the things I learned from the people that I wrote books with in the past, I kind of finally put into play for my own book. Although I have to say, until the night before the day the book came out, I was convinced it was absolute crap, and who was going to like this thing? And how was I going to, instead of writing in Chrissy Teigen's voice, how was I going to step out, and were people going to like what I had to say with my voice? And it's been so rewarding to see Sababa have many lives, its original publication, and then COVID, and, through Chrissy and other people discovering the book. Like, it's just been very exciting and fun, honestly, to be able to do this amazing outreach for Israel in a very non-political and non-religious way. It's just a platform that's so personal, and I see resonating with people. So it's been really great for me.
Well, this is definitely a crowd here that can relate. And if anybody has any questions as Adeena's cooking, feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll get to them as we're going. And we'll save a few minutes at the end too for a Q&A, but feel free to type questions in, and we'll get them to Adeena while she's cooking.
Sure. All right, you guys. So these are cherry tomatoes. As you know, Israel takes great pride in its tomatoes, and these are candy sweet and delicious. When I make my pita quiles, I like the sauce to be sunny, sort of like what I call sababa yellow. So I use the orange and yellow tomatoes. I mix those today with red because that's what I had around. I got some in my farm box. I bought some at the shuk. And I'm adding a whole chili pepper that I'm not seeding because I like things kind of hot and spicy. I'm going to put 3 or 4 cloves of garlic on there. And then I'm just going to take an onion. What I'm trying to do is build a sauce very simply on a roasting pan. So I'm going to cut this onion through the root without removing that root. And then that makes it easier for me to peel this onion. And now I have 2 onion halves. And I'm going to just cut these into wedges. I kind of, when I developed this recipe, I tried it several times so that everything kind of cooked at the same pace and developed a nice charred and caramelized texture without burning. So the tomatoes will be kind of burst at the end and have some color, and the onion wedges will have some slight caramelization around the sides and soften, because, you know, I don't want that raw onion flavor in the sauce, but I do want them to be a little bit soft. So this is like a smallish medium onion that I've cut into 8 wedges that are about maybe a half or 3/4 of an inch thick. And they don't have to stay together. It's okay if they fall apart. And again, you know, like everything in Israel, you know, Michael Solomonov calls tahina the mother sauce of Israeli cooking, but I really think, I agree with him. And I think that its sibling is olive oil. Israel has some of the best olive oil in the world. I'm using first cold pressed olive oil that I got from Pitora, which is a wonderful location that grows its own olives. It's a single source olive oil that is pressed on site and sold direct to consumers at the beginning of the season. I buy it in 5-gallon jugs.
Wow.
I use so much olive oil, especially right now I'm developing the recipes for my next cookbook, which is all about the foods of Shabbat. And I fill this thing, you know, like maybe twice a week. This is about 1 liter of olive oil. And I put my olive oil in here, by the way. I'm just going to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to use a pink Atlantic salt. I find it's the most similar to Diamond kosher salt, which is my favorite salt that is unavailable in Israel. I import some ingredients, but because of COVID, I haven't been traveling as much and haven't really felt comfortable asking the few people who've managed to travel back from the States to bring me a 3-pound box of salt. So I'm making do with what I have here.
I'll bring you some next time I can get there, Adeena.
I would love that. You can use it as a pillow on the plane and then, you know, and then bring it to me. Okay, so I'm gonna, while I put this in the oven, I'm going to check on my pita crisps. They're smelling amazing. They're kind of roasty and toasty, and I see the za'atar on the top, but I'm still gonna let them go a little bit longer. I'm gonna move my pita crisps, since they've already developed some color, I'm gonna move them to the bottom shelf, and I'm going to put the tomatoes on the top because my oven tends to give like a nice caramelizing and browning from the top. So I'm going to put those in there. And if you like that blue sheet pan that I have, it's by a brand called Great Jones, which makes wonderful, pretty reasonably priced and really sturdy cooking products. It's a new company run by 2 female entrepreneurs in New York City who are childhood friends, who I think maybe met in camp, actually, not a Jewish camp, but and so Great Jones has great products, and I really like those sheet pans because they're very durable. You know, when you put things in high heat in the oven, you don't want them to buckle. You know, sometimes you open the oven and you see like your thin sheet pan is kind of twisted and something maybe popped off.
Right.
That's not going to happen with this pan. So, okay, now I've got my two components of my pita quiles in the oven. And we're going to do a little bit of code shifting while that's cooking, and we're going to make our smoothie. The smoothie has been, any questions before we sort of move into the smoothie?
I think we're looking good. I think everybody, we have some comments that we're excited for the Shabbat cookbook. We can't wait for
that. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a mixture of the traditional and a lot of sababa style food, because, you know, the way that the book is about Shabbat as an organizing theme around the way that Israelis cook on weekends, including Fridays, including brunch, including all the salads and all the, you know, big platters that we have when we host people, using all the incredible seasonal produce that we have in Israel. So there's going to be things like chamin and, you know, heavy cholents and things like that. But I mean, to me, like 110 recipes of, you know, big pots of meat and potatoes, like not the kind of cookbooks that I want to read, but those are going to really tie together a lot of the stories of the immigrants to Israel and the different cultures that really inform cooking here that I find so inspiring and exciting. And I feel so privileged to go into people's kitchens and cook with them and learn, and then share people's traditions with you. So that is what is going to be happening. It's going to be kind of a fusion of sababa with Shabbat style food, kind of all mixed together.
Well, that is right up the Judean alley, so we can't wait.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, you would not believe how many kinds of cholent there are in the world. Okay, so we were talking about tahina, and tahina is I think it's truly a superfood. It's taken over as the hottest and most popular ingredient in the Israeli kitchen, even more than ever, because people are using it in sort of different ways. I'm just going to take my pita chips out before they burn. I can smell them.
What brand are you using, Adeena? I know everybody has like their own favorite.
So here are our pita chips. They're nice and toasty and golden. I can still see the green of the za'atar. You guys, za'atar is a blend of biblical era spice called hyssop that is dried. It's in the oregano marjoram family. It's mixed with sesame seeds and salt, and usually sumac, ideally, which is a tart berry that when ground kind of has like a citrusy, acidic quality. And depending on which country in the Middle East you go to, there could be thyme or marjoram or different things in it. Israeli za'atar is typically dried za'atar leaves, sesame, sumac, and salt. And the furrier, the better. So when you come to Israel and you go to the shuk, if you look at the za'atar and it kind of looks fuzzy, it means it's really fresh and voluminous. So I really like that. As far as tahina goes, today I'm using al arz. 100% of the tahina, the best tahina in Israel is made by Arabs and Palestinians, and about 85% of it is bought by Jews. And it's one of those things that I love. It's one of those examples of culinary and cultural and commercial coexistence that just kind of happen every day in Israel. People don't even really think twice about it. Al Arz is a mother-daughter company based in Nazareth. Julia and Lana are Christian Arabs who, it's a second generation business that has recently expanded. And I decided to use Al Arz today because it's available now in the United States, along with Har Bracha, which is the other sort of really hot brand. And a third brand I would add into the mix is Soom. Soom is a brand that was created by 3 American sisters who have connection to Israel. And one of their husbands is a sesame broker. Sesame seeds are a huge business, and all of the sesame seeds used in the finest Israeli tahina are imported from Humera in Ethiopia. It's a very fertile region. And Israelis are the second highest per capita consumers of sesame seeds in the world because of tahina, after the Chinese. So, the political situation in Ethiopia, the weather, all those things impact the price of sesame seeds and the price of tahina. And so people really pay attention here. And it's a really interesting. So I'm using Al Arz today.
It's called Al Arz. We had some requests.
Al Arz. It's AL space ARZ. So arz, like as in Hebrew, erez is a cedar tree. So the erez el-kalvanon. So it's the same word in Arabic. Many words in Arabic and Hebrew are super similar. So it's like that's their logo. You see the little tree right on the package. And most iconic Arab branded tahinas do have some kind of a logo, whether it's a camel or a dove or a tree. So this one is Al Arz. And I love Israeli tahina because in Israel, the date that the tahina was made is what is printed on the top of the jar. So you can see how fresh your tahina is when you buy it. And this one is from January 22nd, which is pretty fresh. In the summertime, when I buy the tahina on the shuk and it feels warm, I think like, ooh, it's still hot off the presses, but it's just because it's like 95 degrees outside.
Literally hot off the press.
Exactly. So I'm going to add 1/4 cup of tahina. And as you can see, when I pour, the tahina has like a really pourable, it's like thick pancake batter. I'm going to pour some of this back in, but I just want to show you how beautiful it is. Or super, super heavy cream. And that's what you're looking for. When you open a jar of tahina, ideally it's going to be like self-emulsified. You shouldn't have to do a lot of stirring. You shouldn't have to do a lot of combining. If you're like me, you grew up on that joiva halva that you had to sort of use all your upper body strength to kind of combine the oily layer with the sort of thick cement layer on the bottom.
This is so much better.
If your tahina is a little older, you can always do that reincorporation, or you can even add it into a food processor or blender with a little bit of neutral oil just to loosen it up. But, you know, it's nice that better tajinas are now becoming available in the United States. All right, my tomatoes are starting to broil and burst a little bit. They're smelling delicious. The garlic is roasting a little. The onions are sizzling on the pan. I just wanted to show you guys one little trick. So something I've been doing lately that I have not seen anybody else do is I like my smoothies to be completely cold and without the addition of ice. So I've been freezing my tahina in ice cube trays or super cubes, which is a new product. And that way, when I pop it into my smoothie, the tahina just, you know, blends up creamy and cold along with as many other cold ingredients as I can. So I'm actually going to pour the tahina back in here, and I'm going to use my frozen tahina cubes today. Each one of these is
Great idea.
It's interesting, right?
It's so interesting. I know when people make smoothies, a lot of the time they use frozen fruit. So do you freeze your bananas?
I have a frozen banana here. And I have, you know, in the book, I recommend that you can add other fruit for color or flavor. So I'm adding some frozen strawberries. It's the height of strawberry season right here. The strawberries are amazing. And I even freeze my medjool dates. I just, you know, sort of when you make biscuits in your food processor, you're supposed to freeze the biscuit. You're supposed to freeze the processor. You're supposed to freeze the flour, freeze everything, freeze the butter. Right. And I think that, you know, the colder you start, the less chance that you're going to have to add ice. And, you know, ice is great right when you make the smoothie, but if you're like me and you kind of like to nurse it all morning, eventually it kind of melts and sort of dilutes the flavor of your smoothie. So I like to start with as many frozen things as possible. And I'm definitely adding vanilla into my smoothie because I just think it adds, and this is vanilla that I make at home. I take vanilla beans and I stick them in a jar and I add vodka and I let it sit for a few weeks, and the vanilla develops a beautiful aroma and depth of color. And over the years, you just keep adding vanilla beans and vodka and you have this sort of like vanilla mother going on, which is really, really cool. Okay, today I'm using almond milk. I love almond milk in general, but I love keeping as many recipes as possible vegan and plant-based. So almond milk works really well in this recipe. There's a wonderful recipe in Sababa for a homemade almond milk if you have the time and the inclination. And I would also highly recommend that you not skip the salt in your smoothie because, you know, adding salt, imagine making cakes without salt. Like salt really emphasizes sweetness in a recipe, and it also adds structure. Like if you add salt to the smoothie or to any sweet recipe, it's going to help define all the different flavors. It's kind of like architecture. You can taste the tahina more, you can taste the vanilla more, you can taste the dates, you can taste the bananas. All the flavors become a little more isolated and it's more fun to taste as opposed to just sort of a bland unified sweetness. So definitely don't, you know, sleep on the salt in this recipe. I'm using my Ninja blender here, and I'm just going to pop this right on and give it a blend for about 30 seconds. Everything's cold, so I can let it go a little bit longer.
So yes, when you freeze your dates, you agreed that it's best to pit the dates and freeze them.
I pit the dates. I don't know how well you can hear me while I'm blending, so I'm just gonna blend for another couple of seconds. So what I sometimes do is I make smoothie packs. Like, you know, these are things that cost like a ton of money at Whole Foods, but I'll freeze my tahina cubes. I'll freeze a couple of dates. I'll put the frozen fruit and I'll freeze a banana and I'll put it in a Ziploc and just throw it in the freezer. And then all I need to do is add the vanilla and salt and almond milk right before I make it. So yeah, I would definitely pit a couple of dates and throw those in the freezer. They do tend to stick together. So if you can freeze them in a single layer at first before combining them. All right, and I'm gonna this looks great. I mean, if you're looking for an extra protein boost, like there's never enough tahina in a smoothie, so you could always add more. There's that beautiful texture.
Gorgeous.
It's really rich. Someone recently suggested adding chocolate, which I thought was a really cool idea, like a chocolate tahina smoothie with dates and banana. Sounds amazing.
Adeena, I made one this morning too, and I decided it tastes like banana chalva, which if anybody's been to any of the shuks lately, there's all these different stands with amazing chalva. and it's like drinking a more healthy version. I love it so much.
That's a really good note. And since I'm gonna be reusing this blender container for my to blend my tomatoes, my little trick, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys do this, is I add water and a drop of soap to the blender container, and then I just turn it on high.
Cleans it right up.
Cleans everything out. It's really great. And I'm just gonna ask Maddie to come finish just rinsing the outside of this, because I got a little bit of tahina on there. Maddie, my assistant, is much neater than I am. So if she had done this demonstration, there would be no drips of tahina on the side of the container. All right, so.
Wait, we have a question before we continue. Sorry to jump in.
Of course.
Somebody wants to know, Adeena, if you don't have a Ninja or a blender, can you make this smoothie in a food processor?
Absolutely. If I was doing it in a food processor, I would definitely go as high speed as you can. And I might drizzle in the almond milk last to sort of try and emulsify it and incorporate as much air into the smoothie as possible. Because, you want that kind of fluffiness and richness. But yeah, you could also use a stick blender. Those are great too.
An immersion blender.
An immersion blender. Yeah, just make sure that you have a nice, big, deep container so that, you're not splashing a smoothie all over yourself. Although I would be lying if I said there had never been a little bit of a smoothie on my ceiling. So, okay, so I'm gonna have a look at my vegetables now. And Julie, how are we doing on time? What time are we at?
We have about 15, 20 minutes. We're doing good.
Amazing. All right, so I'm gonna just take this out for a little update here. These are looking really good to me. I'm seeing some char. I'm seeing also a lot of juice coming out of the tomatoes, and I don't want to cook them so far that I lose the juice, because that juice is just like pure, that's the goo that's inside the tomatoes that you never want to cut out. So I'm just going to cook them for maybe another 3 minutes or so. And then I'm going to start building the sauce and finishing the pita quiles. Yeah, I've been surprised at how popular the breakfast dishes have been from the book. I mean, I know that Israeli breakfast is big, but people are making these recipes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And my husband, Jay, who has had it like 50 times, like he never tires of this pita quiles. And it's just something about the crispiness of the pita and the spiciness of the tomato sauce. What I like to say about Israeli food is that it's all about that interplay of sun and spice. Like there's a lot of acid in the food, courtesy of lemon juice. Israel is not a vinegar country. Everything here is based around lemons and tart citrus and sharp, bright flavors, and a lot of spice, courtesy of jalapenos and harissa and zhug, all the different hot sauces. You could probably do like a cool United Nations of hot sauces and bring together all of the different spicy elements from all the different cuisines that come together in Israel. Obviously, there are more than 100 immigrant groups living here that contribute to the cuisine. And that's sort of the genesis of modern Israeli cooking. I think, in the 80s and 90s, the mark of a great chef in Israel was somebody who could cook the best French food, the best Italian food, the best continental food, the best American food. And then Israel kind of opened up and people started traveling and food media sort of blossomed, and food TV and the internet, and Israel became a wealthier country, and people had more disposable income and began traveling the globe and tasting all these global flavors. And then all the chefs started working in restaurants in places like France and Italy. And they saw in the early 2000s that what the chefs were doing there was taking all their local goat cheeses and oils and vegetables and herbs and traditions and sort of just tweaking them a little bit, but allowing the natural flavors to come through. And I think they said to themselves, hey, wait a minute. I have a country back home that has the best goat cheeses in the world, amazing wines, incredible oils, olive oils, and the best produce, so fresh. And we've been cooking market fresh food in Israel since the beginning of time. It's not an Alice Waters influence trend. It's just the way that Israelis cook. So that's when Israelis kind of came back to Israel and started opening restaurants and throwing things against the wall and seeing what stuck and seeing how they could kind of stay true to their ethnic and immigrant cultures while adding something that's like a little modern and incorporating techniques and, little twists to just elevate things a little. And I think that's one of the explanations for sort of how we got where we are today with Israeli food. Okay,
any
questions?
The world has, I think everybody knows what shakshuka is these days, which is so exciting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think everybody should know what shakshuka is, but sometimes I think we also realize that maybe it's a little, it's not, you can't ever overdo shakshuka, but part of why I like this recipe is because it's similar, but it's different. So it's not quite the same thing. And it's like that element of surprise.
Shakshuka has become in Israel sort of like an omelet. Like every restaurant has it on the menu. And like if you want something that's healthy and safe, you know, I mean, shakshuka has a million iterations in Israel. And obviously, you know, people put merguez sausage in it. They put cheese in it. They put, you know, my shakshuka has dill, which was a little bit controversial because dill is a seasoning that's much more associated with Ashkenazi cooking. And shakshuka is obviously Tunisian in origin and much more connected to the Mizrahi kitchen. But, you know, I wanted to do something a little surprising. And I think shakshuka has kind of become a palette for, you know, all the different experimentation in the Israeli kitchen. So
Robin is just telling us that even at camp, shakshuka is served at least once a session for breakfast at CYJ. Love that. I
have a prediction that there's going to be like a shakshuka pizza at Domino's within like 1 or 2 years. I feel like it's an R&D right now.
Right.
All right. So I'm taking this tomatoes and I'm putting them back into my blender. Again, food processor works great. I just like my little Ninja, and since I already used it, like a lot of my recipes, for those of you who've cooked from the book, I really try to keep things simple. And I try to eliminate the need for multiple sets of dishes and bowls. Like, you know, even honestly, the book calls for tossing the pita chips and za'atar and olive oil in a bowl and transferring it to a sheet pan. And now 1.5 years later, I'm like, what were you thinking? Like, just do it on the pan. So that's what I did today. And, you know, I'm always learning about my own recipes. I love getting feedback from, you know, people who have cooked from the book and who, you know, send suggestions and who put their own twists on the recipes. I love checking out, you know, people's Instagram feeds who tag me, and, you know, it's just wonderful. All right, you guys. So the last step for the sauce blending is I'm taking all that tomato juice, as you can see, and I'm not passing up on it, and I'm putting it right into my blender here.
The only thing wrong with this is that we can't taste those amazing Israeli tomatoes.
I know, they really are amazing. They really are. And now is the time when I'm going to add some fresh lemon juice to this recipe. I do use lemon juice in some things before I cook them, like my lemony cauliflower, but that was intentional because I like the bitterness, the slight bitterness that the acidity develops when it roasts on the cauliflower. But for this recipe, I wanted more of like a bright lemony flavor. So I'm going to just juice some lemon juice right here. And I just wanted to show you my beautiful Zaxenberg juicer. This is the actual juicer that you see in like 90% of Israeli juice shops. And I kind of kept upgrading from like, I say, like from like a jalopy to a Rolls Royce. Like this is kind of the top of the line. It's cost
that
about,
looks very fancy.
It's not fancy. It's just very utilitarian. It's like, I guess it's sort of like a Hummer, but with much better environmental record. It's like super heavy. I can do pomegranates in here. I can do grapefruit halves. I can do oranges and lemons. You know, in my house, the citrus is going all day long. I don't wash it usually in between. I just love this machine. It's a 3rd generation Israeli family business. They're made on a kibbutz in the south of Israel. And you can buy them in the States, but with shipping, they cost about $400 to import. I'm working on that actually. I've been talking to them about maybe trying to figure out how to sell them in the States for cheaper, because every time I use it on my Instagram, people really just are really curious about it. All right, you guys. So I'm going to blend this now. I added the lemon juice and I'm going to season it with salt once I put it into the skillet. Now, you guys, if a processor could be better actually sometimes, because, you know, some more hot air could escape if you're moving quickly. I feel like this is cool enough to blend, but I'm going to do it start on a low temperature here. Gorgeous. The color is amazing. It's golden and beautiful. The red tomatoes and the yellow tomatoes combine to make a beautiful orange sauce. I only needed to blend this for about 15 seconds, and you can see the gorgeous color that I have here.
Totally. The color is coming through.
Oh, good. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to transfer the sauce to our skillet. And I'm using a classic 9-inch Lodge skillet here. And I'm just going to pour the sauce in. I'm not going to add, as you can see, it's a pretty healthy recipe. I'm not going to add any extra olive oil. That color is just stunning in there. Wow, this is, I think, you know, Young Judaea brought out the best in these tomatoes because I've honestly never seen the sauce. This looks like a creamy tomato, like a pasta with, you know, salsa rosa or something like that.
It does. That's what it looks like over the camera too.
So beautiful. All right, so I'm going to just warm the sauce through, and the other elements that are going to go into the sauce are obviously some eggs, because this is a brunch dish, but you know, if you're vegan, you could literally just cook the sauce, put the pita chips in it, and drizzle some tuna on top and call it a day. That would, of course, be delicious. But what I'm going to do is I'm warming the sauce. I'm going to actually just taste it with a spoon for a second and see if it needs anything, if it needs salt. I actually think mine is perfect today. I'm going to do what people in Mexico or in California where I grew up do, is they take the fried tortilla chips, or in this case, the baked pita chips, and I'm just going to drop them in so that some of it is soaked into the base of the sauce and some of it is kind of peeking out so that they stay crispy. And it's sort of that interplay of the crispy and the creamy that's so intriguing and lovely in this recipe.
It looks amazing already. I can taste the different textures in there.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to show you how I like to cook fried eggs. I do sort of like an olive oil method where I baste the eggs as I fry them. And that gives you those beautiful lacy caramelized brown edges to the eggs. So I'm just going to heat up the skillet, another nonstick skillet here. And while that heats up, I have some crumbled feta cheese here. You know, in Mexican cooking, it would be cotija cheese or queso fresco. And feta is like a fresh cheese. So I think it's like a worthy swap in. And then instead of, you know, crema, like Mexican crema that you get in a restaurant, I'm using labane, of course, which is Israeli strained yogurt, which is kind of our version of Greek yogurt here, but it's a little more tart.
Nina, I know this is a tough one, but any suggestions for like a gluten-free option instead of the pita chips?
In Israel, you can get gluten-free pita, but I mean, you could just literally take Udi's gluten-free bread and cut it into strips and toss it in olive oil and
that's great.
And za'atar. I think it would be amazing. Or you could use corn chips. You could literally combine chilaquiles and my recipe, and you could put, you know, tortilla chips into this sauce. I think that would be amazing. I don't see why not.
Amazing.
All right, so I'm going to add a really generous splash of olive oil to the skillet here. I really don't skimp on the olive oil. To me, olive oil is like the ultimate seasoning of Israeli cooking. So I just embrace it and embrace its health properties as well. And so while that oil is heating up a drop more, I'm going to sprinkle the feta right in here. Such a pretty dish, I have to say. Even after all these times making it, it still makes me happy every time because it's just so sunny and beautiful. You can keep the feta cold and put it in right at the end, but I like it when it sort of soaks into the sauce a teeny tiny bit. All right, so now I'm going to crack an egg into the skillet here. Can you guys see this skillet?
Yeah, we can. We're good.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I think my oil is nice and hot. Getting there. I'm going to transfer these because the skillet is a little bigger, a little hotter. And all we're doing on the chilaquile sauce is just kind of warming at this point. So I'm going to take advantage of, this is a new kitchen renovation. So I have 5 burners now, which has really been a game changer in my cooking life.
It's a must.
You know, oh, well, when I work with Chrissy Teigen, you know, I told her that I just finally got a second oven, and she said, "You've been doing this for 20 years with one oven." I was like, I lived in Manhattan, you know, there were no double ovens. Okay, so I'm going to crack an egg right into the skillet here. Great. And, you know, you want it to start frying right away, which means that the oil is hot. And as the egg begins to cook, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a spoon, and I'm going to what's called baste the egg, which means I'm going to swirl oil on top of the white so that the yolk is going to stay golden, but the white is going to cook. And by adding oil to the top of it, you know how sometimes your egg can get kind of dry or gummy? Like if you do this, it's like basting a steak or basting a piece of chicken or really anything. And it's going to create those beautiful lacy edges that make a fried egg so delicious. You can just definitely do this over easy if that's your jam. And I'm seeing lots of tiny little bubbles popping up in the egg. It's kind of like shallow frying a piece of schnitzel. But I'm achieving the desired effect here. And probably in about 30 seconds, this egg is going to be ready to add on top of our dish. I'm using omega eggs today. Those are eggs that are fed salmon shells, salmon skin, and different types of krill, I think, or maybe kosher krill because it's Israel. And flaxseed, which makes the yolks just like incredibly, incredibly golden and beautiful. And they obviously have great nutritive properties as well. So yeah, my egg has this beautiful laciness here. I'm going to put it right on top of my pita quiles. I'm going to bring this back here. I'm actually going to move it front and center to finish plating it and just show you the finishing touches. All right, so we have this I would ordinarily put 4 eggs on top, but I'm going to wait until my husband comes home and I'm going to freshly fry him his dinner topping. So I'm just going to take some whole cilantro leaves, not chop them. I like the look of whole leaves. And because the dish is hot, you know, the cilantro isn't going to really disappear into there. And then I'm just going to take a spoon and dollop a little bit of yogurt all over, a little lamine.
Looks amazing. And I assume you could use parsley instead of the cilantro too.
You can definitely use parsley. You can use scallions. You can use basil. I mean, I really believe that recipes are suggestions and guidelines and not hard and fast rules. And you should use what you have. If all you have is 2 cans of, pureed tomatoes, use that instead of the cherry tomatoes. The idea of cooking is to have fun and feed yourself, not to, feel obligated to stick exactly to the recipe. It's to be inspired. It's to have fun. I'm adding salt and pepper just to finish seasoning this beautiful dish. And as you can see, like it really didn't take that long. I did everything in real time. I made the pita quiles in probably 35, 40 minutes, and I managed to squeeze the smoothie in while the tomatoes were roasting. And there you have it.
And you have a full, gorgeous meal.
You have a full, gorgeous meal. It looks stunning, smells great over here. And I hope that if you guys make it, that you'll send me photos, tag me on Instagram, keep in touch. I love seeing what you guys are doing with the book and how you're making the recipes your own as well.
I definitely think you will be seeing some photos from this group soon, because I'm listening. Everybody's interested. They want to make it. It looks so good. I think we will definitely be cooking it as well. We did have a question about going back to the smoothie for a second. Any other milk? If you don't have almond milk, can you use 2% skim milk? Does any milk work?
Any milk will do. Oat milk, coconut milk, soy milk, whole milk, skim milk, any milk you want truly will work. If you also, another trick, I mean, sometimes people have, half and half in the house, you can like dilute your half and half with water to make whole milk, just like whatever is going to give you like a creamy texture,
Right.
And also tahina is so creamy that if you add an extra tablespoon or 2 of tahina and use water, it'll definitely enrich the drink. And, it might not be quite as white and creamy, but tahina is nothing if not creamy. So like that would completely work as well. And if you don't have tahina or allergic to sesame, you can use peanut butter, obviously, natural peanut butter works wonderfully.
I love that there's so many options.
Yeah, all the recipes are very adaptable.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your brand of olive oil. Is what you use, somebody wants to know if it's available in the US, or what would be like the closest.
Ketorah is not available. I don't believe that. I think the best option if you want to buy an Israeli olive oil is there's an Israeli Arab cooperative called Sindanaya. It's based in the north, and it's a cooperative of Arab and Israeli women who have equal share in a business where they harvest and press olives into oil, and they also make za'atar and other products, and those are available on Amazon and other online sources. It's called Sindanaya, Sindanaya. You know, right now, if you guys are in the mood for a splurge, Lior Serkaz, who's the founder of La Boite, which is America's like premier boutique spice company. He's Israeli. He's from up north, and his father makes olive oil. And right now on his website, which is laboite.com, he's selling what he calls Moshe oil, which his father's name is Moshe, and he's selling beautiful liter bottles of his father's gorgeous oil for $35, which to me is not very expensive, and they sell out quickly. I've been going online every free chance that I have and sending them as gifts to everyone who's been doing nice things for me.
That's
so
amazing.
I would go on and Google Moshe oil from La Boite, and that's like a very rare opportunity to get like first cold pressed Israeli oil in the United States. So I recommend that. And then if you can't get his, oh, you know, another thing I wanted to suggest is adding avocado to this. If you're vegan and you can't do eggs, avocado is a wonderful source of nutrition, and also just so creamy and wonderful, and adds an extra beautiful color to the dish, and reinforces the Mexican inspired theme. So that could be another thing to do. But if you can't get Israeli olive oil, I would go for a California olive oil. You know, if you live in the United States, it's great to like try and get oil that doesn't have to be shipped halfway across the world. So, you know, California olive oils are great. There are a lot of good ones.
So somebody wants to know, how many people do you think this dish would serve? I know you said you'll crack a few more eggs when he gets home, but it looks like maybe 4 people, 3, 4?
Say 2 to 3, really, realistically, because, you know, the sauce.
Because it's so delicious.
Yeah, I mean, 4 if it's kind of part of a brunch spread, but if it's really if you're just serving this with like a salad, I would say 2 to 3.
Okay, great.
3 eggs would be great, and dividing it for 3 people would work really, really well.
Amazing. Feel free, everybody, type in any questions in the chat, or go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in and ask Adeena. We have a few more minutes for questions. I know this has been so fun. I love bringing, you know, a piece of Israel to us over here in the States for a little bit, and hearing the stories that go with it is so much fun.
It's been quite a year. You know, I was on book tour for Sababa until the end of December 19, and then I got back and COVID hit pretty quickly. And I had the second portion of my book tour canceled. And I started doing these Zoom classes and online things. And, you know, although it's a real, you know, paradigm shift, it's definitely been fun and interesting, and introduced me to whole new audiences. So, you know, I don't mean to be a Pollyanna, like it's been a hard year, but things like this have definitely been bright spots and have, you know, kept American Jews and Israeli Jews connected. And I can't believe it's almost a year since I did a huge like live. There was a Jewish cooking festival last May, and Michael Solomonov and I cooked for 7,000 people live, you know, which was amazing. But you know, these events are just as special and just as connecting, and in some ways more, because it's a smaller group. So yeah,
for sure.
And we're coming out of COVID here. You know, we're almost 50% fully vaccinated in Israel, and just today the restaurants reopened. They're waiting to see, you know, the impact of Purim, like whether all the Purim gatherings are going to spike the rates. It's been about 10 days now. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, it's a grand experiment. Israel is in some ways as dysfunctional as the rest of the world. And in some ways, we're feeling really fortunate to be here, to have free vaccinations and a centralized, socialized healthcare system. As an American freelancer who like struggled with that for 15 years, it feels like a blessing. And, you know, I hope that everyone in the States, if you're not vaccinated yet, that you get vaccinated soon and feel healthy and safe, and that we can all travel and visit one another again. And
we certainly all hope for that soon too. But in the meantime, I think the internet is such an amazing thing. The fact that we can do this and, you know, see you on Instagram and see you cooking with all these other amazing chefs. Adeena, tell us a little bit more. When do you think your Shabbat cookbook is going to be available on bookshelves for us to purchase?
It's going to be available in October 2022, so in about a year and a half.
Amazing.
And, you know, I'm hoping to also do some really interesting video around the book. Obviously, I won't be able to record observant Jews on Shabbat, but Friday preparations and like the scene in Israel on Friday as the country sort of winds down and takes a collective sigh of relief that Shabbat has started. It's a very special time here, whether you're religiously observant or not. So, and I really want the book to, be as much about slowing down and, disconnecting and unplugging and self-care, and the host feeling as relaxed and taken care of as the guest. So there's going to be a lot of tips for preparing things in advance, things to be served at room temperature, things that cook overnight. So it really sort of plays, Shabbat has always been a huge part of my life. I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home in Palo Alto, and Shabbat was really the center of our existence, and the time that as a busy family, we just kind of stopped everything and bound ourselves to one another. And like, although I'm no longer strictly Sabbath observant, I take a lot of those lessons with me, and I want to bring that spirit and take it wide. Like, also, not only, I think Shabbat is for everybody. I think Jews, non-Jews, and everyone can learn something from this incredible gift that Judaism has, at its core. So like, I'm going to try and present all that in a very relaxed and non-pedantic way, in a way that everyone can take something from.
Well, we can't wait. We know you'll do a great job, and you'll have lots of supporters from this crowd. We have one last question.
Can I ask a quick question, Julie? Hi, Adeena. It's Robin. This is a really, really quick question of, everyone's been asking me about that olive oil jar that you have on your thing, and they want to know where they can get it because it looks awesome.
So I'm glad you brought it up. So I keep because Israel's so hot, I keep my oil, if you guys have olive oil in a clear jar, wrap it in foil. I keep it in here because it both protects it from sun and also very little oxygen exposure, which are the two things that help create deterioration in oil. If you Google olive oil picture online, a lot of them will come up. This one is from Portugal, which is known to have the best ones. The one that I specifically have is not available in the United States, but there are many products that are similar. And the thing I think you really want to look for is this beautiful spout that allows you to pour so elegantly and feel very chefy and professional, regardless of your level of skill. And you just pop this open to refill. And you guys just don't keep your olive oil in a sunny window, even if it looks beautiful, and don't keep it near the stove or in a cabinet above the stove. Keep it in a cool, dry place, and it's going to last a lot longer.
Okay, that's amazing. Becky, Becky has something fun for us all to do. Do you want to jump in?
I will jump in. Adeena, thank you so very much. I have to say, this is my favorite cookbook. I almost have to buy another one now because it's so worn and spattered and everything else. And I'm drinking my Bloody Miriam while you're cooking. So if you haven't, this is an amazing recipe. It's carrot juice instead of tomato juice. So check that out.
Thank you.
So at an alumni event, we did this amazing thing, which I have since done a lot at work. And that is, if everybody can open their chat and just type your favorite Israeli food, but don't press send yet because it's called a cascade. And Liz Letterman introduced this to us, which was great. So in the chat, type in your favorite Israeli food. And when I say go, press send, and we get a chance to see what everybody loves and hopefully inspire Robin to bring more of this type of food to camp. No pressure, Robin. So just take a minute and type in your favorite. Don't press send yet. Don't press send, don't press send, don't press send. All right, I'm gonna count up to five, and then we'll all press send. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Press send.
Woo!
Yum, malawa, there you go. Try to make that a camp. And falafel, lots of shakshuka, schnitzel. Oh, I love schnitzel. I remember that from your course. Yum, halva, although we have something better now with tahina that we just saw. And halloutis on everything. This is awesome.
That's Adeena, so nice.
Adeena, thank you so very much for all your inspiration. I'm looking at your amazing cookbooks in the back, so I'll ask you separately about what inspires you, but thank you so much again.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. It was lovely to spend time with you.
Great to have you. I know everybody's going to look forward to making these amazing recipes and connect with you online. And thank you for taking time. And I think
my pleasure.
Brian, we'll turn it back over to you.
And if you have any other questions, Julie, if you can collect them and send them to me, and I'm happy to answer any straggler questions.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Adeena.
Yeah, and just boy, wow. Want to add my thanks to Adeena. Adeena, I took really careful notes during the last hour. I'm gonna give this a shot. I'll call you if I run into any issues.
Anytime.
But really, just thank you so much for sharing your craft, for sharing your passion, for sharing your story, and it just made this event so much more vibrant. We really appreciate getting a chance to meet you this way and to see this expertise in action. So we hope to do it again.
I would love that.
Also, my wife was here, and I got a lot of birthday present ideas, throughout this whole program. So an added thank you.
Good.
A big thank you to Julie Ohana for really helping to conceptualize this event, and it was Julie's vision, and establishing the relationship with Adeena, and the thought that this would be a great way to provide some value and just a fun experience for our stakeholders, for donors. Thank you, Julie, for all the work you did. And also, of course, to Becky Harris-Kaplan, who's one of the newest members of our development committee, but really threw in to help spearhead this event and added her organizational experience and her vision to this. As always, Robin and Kevin and our Aaron, our great CYJ staff for keeping camp going. And of course, our development committee and our hardworking board of directors. And again, just to end where we began today, a big thank you to all of you for being here, for your ongoing support. It's because of you we can go from strength to strength. So we were really glad to be together this evening, and we'll look forward to doing it again.
Bye. Bye.
If anybody wants to stay on while we're just going to finish up the slideshow, feel free, and we'll chat for a few minutes. We'll say goodbye to Adeena, but those of you that want to chat, feel free to stay on for a few more. Hi, everybody, whoever's still on. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. We just wanted to give everybody a chance to hang on for a few more minutes and chat and just touch base with everybody. So feel free, unmute, jump right in. This is not part of the official program. This is just the after party for anyone that wants to hang out and chat with one another.